Thank you, President Allen. It is my pleasure today to introduce Coach Tim Regan. Tim is the head coach for the Peoria City soccer team here in Peoria, which competes in the USL 2 Division Semi-Professional League. Tim is also the current assistant men's soccer coach at Bradley University. He is a Bradley alum and a former All-American for Bradley men's soccer team, where he established himself as one of the best players in program's history. After that, Tim played professionally for several years in Major League Soccer. Please help me welcome Peoria City Soccer head coach, Tim Regan.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. I'm going to make challenging life for Jeff in terms of trying to get all the things I asked up on the screen. Because I want to explain to you what Peoria Soccer is. So Peoria City Soccer, we just came onto the scene last year and played our first season, and it's kind of confusing. I am a soccer enthusiast. I spent my whole life in the game. My Bradley degree hasn't really helped me much because I just have watched soccer and coached soccer my whole life. But in a good way, I think what we brought here to the city is something that we're hoping, one, sticks, and two, really starts to serve the community in the long run. In the initial stage, we want to make sure we can stay afloat and get people to support us and find out the product is useful. And then from there, where can we grow it? And so as a starting point, the one question most people ask me is, what is it? What are you? So the United Soccer Leagues is a pretty large group of teams. Over like hundreds of teams are involved. So at this level, most of the players that we bring to Peoria during the summer are college in age. They can be younger and they can be older, but the bulk of the group is college age. So 18 to 22-year-old males is where most of our audience is. We do have quite a few local players. So far, we have been registered on the team. We can add more if we wish. The roster can be as big as you want. So it's a big group. Right now, we're almost at 30. They're transient people, college students. Hard to lock them in for something for 8 straight weeks when really they don't get a whole lot out of it. So the players come from everywhere. I said we have quite a few locals, Peoria-Notre Dame high school grads, Washington, Illinois, Morton. I think those are the 3 high schools we have represented of our local players. We also have players from all over the world. We have a player from Ecuador, we have a player from Ghana, we have a player from Denmark, England. So we cover a range when it comes to the entire world. It's also something, these guys are college students, so they came here from their home countries to play soccer. They've opted to stay during their summertime and enjoy playing here in our city. The next thing is you can go to the next, perfect. So we do have some restrictions. Thanks. I was making a mistake. Okay. The restrictions in age. We are limited to 10 overage players. Overage is over 23. We are limited to 10 foreign players. And then the NCAA, I cause a problem in that way because I am a coach at Bradley University. So I have to dance around all the Bradley rules that the NCAA throws in. Cannot have Bradley players. They're not allowed. I cannot have any player on the transfer portal. If you follow college athletics, there's a lot of them. So the other thing I can't have junior college players. Can't have youth players that live outside of 50 miles away from Bradley's campus. And I could keep going and I'd have a degree in NCAA rules by the end of it. So there are some restrictions, but on the whole, there's thousands and thousands of soccer players. We'll do just fine in figuring out who they are. Move on to the next one. Okay, so this one's a little bit complicated. I'll try not to be too much of a soccer geek as I am. So the U.S. Soccer Federation governs all soccer in our country. They create levels. The USL is one of those levels, so you can hop on to the next one. There at the very top is the pyramid. MLS is the best league. They have the best players. They have the most money. It continues to grow. Almost 30 teams now in the league. You see this next one down. Let's talk minor league baseball because it's the easiest relation I can give in the Chiefs. In soccer, we don't have minor league teams. So we don't, the Chicago Fire and St. Louis City don't have affiliates like the Chiefs. So they're independent clubs. The USL Championship is the second tier of professional soccer. They have 24 teams. They have a full budget, front office, players. They pay stadiums. they run their own chiefs in each of their respective places. Go down another level, you have the third division, and you say, well, why are there 3 different things there? Well, each of those organizations have established their own professional leagues. In my opinion, quite excessive, but nonetheless, each team of MLS has a reserve team. USL has League One, and then NASA, which will fold soon because it's a terrible idea, but I get on my soapbox for that one. I dropped one more to the 4th tier. That's where we sit with Peoria City. So we are the 4th tier of soccer in this country. The little symbol next to the USL2 is the Adult Soccer Association. There are lots of leagues around the country that are really like organized men's leagues, I would call it. They have little stadiums, they play in places, they charge people to get in, but in the end, they are still amateurs. All the players are amateurs. Same in our group. Everyone has to be an amateur. So for instance, I myself was a former professional. If I want to play on our team, which I could, that would be a bad coaching move, but I could do it. I would have to take my professional status and go to the U.S. Soccer Federation and turn myself into an amateur again. So we cannot have professional players. We cannot pay players. That's against NCAA rules, and it would be totally against the model. The USL Choose model describes themselves as path to pro, and they use the word pre-professional. They try to get away from amateur for some reason, just a word choice situation. Okay, so now the USL. Whew, it's a mouthful. I'm not going to have you. I just put it up there for the sake of looking at it. The USL has a lot going on. Championship is pros. League One is pros. They're starting a super women's league. They want to rival the other women's league in this country. Their big complaint, and rightfully so, there are over 100 professional men's teams in our country and only 12 women. And so they want to add to that. And so they've already got 12. They'll get to 24. They'll snap their fingers. They'll be there really fast because all the clubs that have men's teams want to support women, but they need a place to play. So there is a competitive women's league down at the bottom there called the W League. That's the same as what we are in Peoria City. And they have, I think they're almost up to over 70 teams around the country, but they are amateurs. So college students playing in places. We would like to add a women's team eventually. We need to get a little bit more resources to do that because it's a little bit pricey. The biggest expenses we have are travel and housing players. It costs a lot of money to keep people here for 3 months, feed them, and keep them engaged. So we will get there, but as I said, step 1 in the beginning is survive and get our footing here in town first. That's just a fancier version of the USL. They do have a youth system. We do not have a youth academy affiliated with us. We just bring in the guys for the season. So that's the same as the last slide. That women's pathway is growing, and we'll get there. Okay, so but then it's like, well, how did it form? Why are you here? Jim DeRose is my boss, has been a head coach at Bradley for 28 seasons now. I rejoined him from playing for him for 4 years, and I've been here for my 7th season coming this fall. So how did we get the club here? One of the guys that I worked for when I was a college student is from Southside Chicago, and he grew up loving soccer, connected to the Brother Rice community, if you follow basketball, football in that world. And he came to us and offered the opportunity to bring a club here. He had a partner in the soccer world that had a club in Canada that had to disband, and they wanted to put it in the States. And they chose us as a market. So we didn't have to buy the franchise, which saved us a lot of money. We were able to get a little bit of capital to start, and so we took that network and we brought the club here. Jim took on the project in terms of managing all details. And if you've never met Jim, he's a go-getter. He's very extreme in everything he does, and he's all into this project right now on top of his full-time job at Bradley. So there's no spare time in his day. We use Shea Stadium. We use a lot of Bradley resources. Selfishly for us, it does help the university. We bring in some level of revenue. We also use the university's apartments in the summertime to house the guys, which is really good. We use the Market Recreation Center for them to work out in because they're fit guys. They're on plan for most of their schools. And then we utilize Shea Stadium, which for us, selfishly, we think is the greatest place ever. But it is a really nice place to go watch a sporting event, just like it was when the Chiefs played there when I was in college. I didn't know it was a soccer venue till I came back here a few years ago. So that's how we got the club here. We were supposed to start in 2020. Like all things, nothing started in 2020. So we chose to shut down in 2021. Ooh, the league was really mad at us. But we felt in the state of Illinois that in June, the first thing we're going to ask all of us in this room is, hey, COVID is finally letting you go out. Come watch a soccer team you never heard of. No chance to really advertise it. We didn't think it was the right thing. And so we held it until 2022. So when you look at my shirt, and it says MMXX, we tried to go with the Roman numerals for starting in 2020, but we didn't play until 2022. So I always have to tell the story of why we have these silly things on here. But we went through the design and we kept it. And so we'll be in our second season right now. We had our first game last week. We did have record attendance. We got over 1,300 fans showed up, and it was packed. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing. We didn't win, so I'll have to fire myself pretty soon if I can't fix that. But it went really well from the standpoint. So I'm going to go into a little bit more about the club here with these PDFs. So what I'm giving you is we use Grindstone, which is a local marketing company. They do design really well. So we went with Grindstone through a connection that brought the club here. And we asked Grindstone because we're soccer coaches. We don't really know much about designing anything except for people on the field. So if you could just slide through these, what are we going to design this about? It is what is Peoria? That's what we wanted to bring into it. So you can keep going. You can keep going because I'm not that good at the design part. They want to be dynamic and bold and athletic and all these words. So then there's pictures that are on here. They just came up with ideas of what in the Peoria world is going to bring everything that we want to be. So they just went around town and started taking pictures of different things. And then they used some soccer examples, like this A is from Atlanta. They used some other soccer themes. They wanted to go with bridges, and they wanted to go with the old whiskey heritage that we have, the colors. And so they put all of these ideas. You can go on to the next one. And they wanted to get the colors for it. And so the copper color does come from everything that is the whiskey roots. I think they made up the rest of it, but it sounds really impressive. We don't actually use the blue, so these are kind of the designing phase things. Again, you want to get little things like font, so you can go on to the next one. That's a famous soccer player from the 90s. If you're really into the game, you'd know who he is. But as that design on the left is, how can we make this modern? And so you can keep going through these pretty quick. So the bridges came into it. And so when you get to the badge, it'll come later on, is they took these designs, and this is the one that was original, but it was a little bit too modern. But as you look through it, you start to see what they were looking for in terms of trying to create it. We end up keeping some of the P and the angled element. You can go to the next one. Keep going, keep going. Okay, so then we get into this angled font. We really just didn't want to be boring, so we went with something that was just different. Sometimes when you're looking at soccer, there's hundreds and thousands of players and teams all over the place. And so we went with this angled font that we think looks pretty unique on the uniform and on t-shirts. And then there's going to be all kinds of variations for what Peoria City is. Okay, we went with the carp. We don't put this on a whole lot of things, but Jim DeRose was adamant that no different than everything you see in minor league baseball, it's fun, it's unique, it's different. And so we threw the carp on. Really, it looks the best on the hat. We had it on our jersey last year on the back. We did not put it on this year's jersey. We'll expand it as it goes, but the way we use it the most right now is we have a P in the badge that'll come up in a little bit, and we have the carp that goes around it. So we thought it would be something fun. These were tough because what we found, we really wanted to use the angled numbers. The only thing is they're really expensive. And eventually you run out of budget, and so we went with classic numbers with a little bit of angle because these designs were just not worth it. And so there's like a mock-up of the jersey. We ended up going with black and white, but we wanted these kind of different looks. You can keep going. And there's that white jersey on the left is pretty close to what we are, except we wear Under Armour instead of Nike. And then the Carpe Diem was just a play on words, and we put it on a t-shirt. And we haven't produced many of them yet because we wanted to see if they'll take any traction. And the same goes with the hat. And then can you go on to the next?
Present.
Oh yeah, go a couple more. There's two more in this one that I want to show you. There was a real lot of talk about how are we going to design this. This is what we call the classic look. In one of those pictures from downtown, there was a doorway that had a point to it that was kind of rounded, and we just flipped it upside down. And then it was like, well, are you really going to know what that is? Are we going to show you a picture of that downtown building? It didn't make a whole lot of sense, and it looked old to us. So you can click through these, but there's that picture. And so we kept going and decided we wanted something more modern. So, but if you keep on this one, we did keep elements. We kept the P. Now the 5 stripes, the 5 bars of the 6 stripes, there are 6 overpasses of bridges that go through into Peoria, including one for trains. So you take all the bridges, and we wanted to have these identities. The other one was voting districts. We have 5 voting districts. And it's something that you think to yourself, you have to put it up there and tell the story, but we did want to make it a Peoria-centric thought process when everything we did. And so that's where we came up with these different ideas. I say we, I sat there and listened as other people came up with all these ideas. And then we ended up with a little bit of a different look. And keep going, keep going. These are all our original ones. And there's the P, we kept it. We kept the P with the carp. And then eventually we ended up with the final design. You can go to the next
PDF.
Yeah, the next PDF. Sorry to bore you with all this, but I wanted to just get to the fact that we really want this to be centric to the community and understanding that we want to be Peoria based. The next thing we want to do eventually is we want to grow soccer, but we don't need to grow soccer in the areas where it already exists. For instance, there are plenty of youth players in our town that can afford to pay you as parents or aunts, uncles, grandparents. Sure, everybody's had kids play. It's great, except it's expensive. Just is. It's my kid playing. I can't believe it. We're driving all over the place for a 12-year-old to play soccer that is painful to watch, except for a parent. I love my child, so I watch it. But I don't understand why I need to drive not 100 miles to watch a game that I think we could play in Beacon. So that for us is, what about the people who can't drive to games, whose parents can't get them places? How do we get our players out onto fields and parks and places where I think I'm not that old, but I like to think that I started playing soccer in a park and in a yard, not on an organized field with paint, in a coach in a special shirt, because I didn't play on a team until I was 11, and I made it as a professional. So it's possible, but there has to be places to do it. And when we get these guys here in early May, to be quite frank, they don't have a whole lot to do. I only run practice for an hour and a half. So what do we do the rest of the day? How do we keep them engaged? And we want to get them out. We're going to use the Peoria Public Schools as they're getting their soccer program to grow. That's a key aspect through the schools, because especially in the lower income areas, the kids can walk to school. And so we can get them to the yards there. We can try to create some soccer enthusiasm. So all of our badges and all these things are bringing ourselves into the community. These are a bunch of ideas that didn't stick. Again, when you get practical about putting all this stuff on shirts and trying to sell it, it looks really good digitally. It didn't look that great when it went onto a black t-shirt. And so eventually, I think if there's 3 pages on this one, we ended up going in the dead center there on the left. The only thing as a soccer person when I go around is I love that I know everything about soccer, but if you come up to me, if there's not a soccer ball on it, you would see Peoria City and say, what sport? So we put a soccer ball in the P on the final product, as we just thought that was really important for what we are. And then we're going to try to get into all things that are merchandise, because what a better way to have yourself sold is that people walk around and just see it. And there aren't many sports teams around here, and we feel that during the summertime we can try to capitalize on the market. When it comes to our home games, if you've never been to Shea Stadium, it is something where we really just want to make it a place where you can come and just have fun. So if you like soccer, you can go join us. If you've never seen a soccer game, you'll probably have more fun, because you might stay longer in the parking lot and tailgate and enjoy the DJ and enjoy the music and enjoy the environment. If you've never been to a soccer game with a supporters club, we have a supporters club called the 309. They started themselves, and it started with one guy. And one guy got on Facebook and did what people do on Facebook, because I don't have one, or I guess I do, but I don't use it. And they're up to 300 people. And they were at the game the other day, and they sat dead center, and there was at least 50 of them. And soccer's big thing is you hold up these scarves, and your scarf has your team name on it, and they make songs, they bring drums, and during the game there's just this constant sound, and that's very soccer-like. It has a rhythm to it. And so many cultures around the world, it is like a party, and the music never stops when the ball's in play. It's just a different experience. Of course, there's kids rolling up and down the grass hills and running around, kicking balls everywhere, which I love as somebody that enjoys soccer. And then there's just people that just walk around, just talking and having fun. And so it's a different sporting event. You don't have to sit in the seat and watch the game the whole time. You can enjoy yourself. We don't sell a whole lot, so the tailgate is bring your own. We have food trucks out there, both desserts and food, but the whole thing is getting the community together. You can bring a family. It could be adults. It could be high school kids. You can just be there to have a couple drinks and go home. It's what everybody wants. It's only $5 to get in. We have no real interest, nor does our owner, and making a lot, well, making money. We spend a lot of money. So there's a zero chance to make money. And at $5 a ticket, it's never going to get there. That's not the point. The point is to make it affordable for people to come. And at the youth tournament the other day, there was a youth tournament up in Mossville, and we gave out passes for $3 tickets. Again, it's just about getting people there, because without people, we have nothing. So my message there would just kind of give you the history and the background, what some of the goals are, and how we plan to stick around, number one, and then grow it. Grow it with a women's team, grow it in terms of stability. We only have 6 games, though. That's kind of a problem in the whole scheme of things, because 6 just isn't a lot. We could add additional games, but it's a tight window. It's only 8 weeks, and we don't want to kind of bully ourselves into the marketplace that way. If I was going to give you the pipe dream of all dreams, USL League One is the 3rd tier of soccer in this country. If in the course of the next 5 years we can get some really big money, people with hundreds of millions of dollars in their bank accounts, we would love to bring a team that would be here. That season would go from April till mid-March, late March through October. That's that soccer season. Again, that's a pipe dream, but it's one in which if we gotta all have ambition in life. We're happy with what we're doing, but we really think that soccer, there's an appetite for it, and there's enough people that will be into the game. So I think at this point I've talked enough, and I'll leave it to any questions or anything that you might have about anything Peoria City related or soccer for that matter.
I'm a big Ted Lasso fan. Okay. A lot of people. Do they play soccer the same internationally? Is it the same rules and everything, or do something different?
No, it's a really good question. So,
So the can't mention that. He asked the question of when it comes to the world, do we play it differently? You know who actually plays it differently is college coaches. We have very unique rules. The clock goes the wrong way in college. We're allowed excessive substitution. So this league follows more of the international game. And so what you see on Ted Lasso, the only difference will be substitutions. They are allowed 5 substitutions, we're allowed 7. But in the end, everything else is the same. The rules of the game, offsides, handballs, all these little details are the same exact thing you would see in a World Cup, with the exception of substitutions.
yeah, how's the competition?
The competition. So this league touts itself as the highest level of amateur soccer. And that's why we wanted it. To be quite frank, we could play in a different league where we can get much lower level players and have more of a local market and not even house players. And we would probably be successful because we have enough talent to do that, but not in this league. And we have to bring players from outside. We just don't have enough good players around here. I'm the mean guy that has to tell the players they're not good enough. I'm not well liked in some circles because I have to be honest with them. And they come to me and, Coach, can I come to practice? Yes, but if you're not good enough, I will tell you not to return because we need to make sure it stays at a high level. So in terms of the number of players that in this league go on to great things, the USL does a really good job of selling this, and they sell it well. In terms of the MLS Super Draft, which is the college draft that leads to collegiate athletes going into MLS, they have produced in the last 10 years, 80% of the draft picks have come and played in this league. So I'm not saying that they were groomed here, but they put on a jersey and were registered to play in this league because most college players spend their summers in this league because it's the most competitive, organized, and consistent over the course of time. So the standard is really high when you look at some of the opponents. If I would go to the opponent we played the other day, I see 2 players in that field as a former professional scout that I think have a chance to make it at a pretty good level. On our team, to be frank, we were a little better last year, but we've got 2 guys that just cleared registration yesterday that I think are pretty talented that I haven't seen on the field yet. I've only seen them at practice. And as we all know, when we watch sports, the only thing that matters is when the scoreboard goes up and the lights are on and see how they perform.
You said the players can't do college.
Can, yes.
They can.
Yes, this is they're on break from college. Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm the problem with that one. I can't coach my own Bradley players. That's not allowed.
So Bradley versus Peoria City.
Peoria City wins.
Where do you compete?
So the USL League 2 has 122 teams. We are in a Midwestern division Our opponents are 2 in Chicago, 1 in Des Moines, 1 in Springfield, Illinois, 1 in St. Louis, 1 in Wichita. And then we make right the middle. We got the best spot. We have all day trips except for Wichita. Good for the budget. Yes.
I just want to speak to Bradley's side for a second as a Bradley professor and just thank the coaches for always supporting the academics for the soccer players. The students are focused. The students and the coaches are always willing to help proctor exams when we travel and stay in communication. So just thank you for that.
No, thank you. And I use my English degree to also edit papers for them in a very appropriate way. I just do grammar. I don't write. Appropriate. I'm just an editor.
They have ChatGPT for that.
Yeah, well, they told me that. We had an explanation on the bus in April about that. I learned a lot. I'm glad I'm not a student or a professor. Anything else on the Peoria City side? Yes.
When's the next home game?
Next home game tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. All of our kicks off are at 7:30. What we realized last year, we did 7 o'clock, that when you're there and you're looking into the west sun, it's a very unpleasant experience. So we went a little bit later. Not great for our smaller audience of young kids, but definitely better for the fans. Yes.
Is Wes starting tomorrow?
Is Wesley Gibson starting tomorrow? Ooh, they put me on the spot there.
My husband is former coach.
Okay. I am kicking around 2 different schemes of attacks. Oh, you didn't go to the game. If he doesn't start, I guarantee you who will play, because one of the players that he would be competing for is not fit to play a whole 90 minutes. It's one of the big problems I have, right? These boys came from college, but most of them did finals and haven't trained for 2 and 3 weeks. They are not in shape. And I can't snap my fingers and make that happen. So, yeah, it's a good, so at our level, if you go 4 days without training at a pretty top level, you'll start to drop. You get to 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks to recover, to get back to game fitness. Yeah, I'm only 42, but it'd take me about 6 months.